The subject of identity theft affects us all if we use the internet.
Jeśli tylko korzystamy z internetu.
Today, online scammers are able, basically after sending us a single message with a link, to make us want to get access to a package we supposedly sent, for example.
Zyskać dostęp do paczki, którą rzekomo wysłaliśmy.
Now, what's the trick?
Na czym polega trik?
The trick is that the purpose of these messages is to get the victim to click on the link
Takiej wiadomości.
and then fill out a form. And here is a very important point. This form collects more personal data than necessary. And in addition, verification is done using a bank account
Konta bankowego
or by providing payment card numbers. And this information allows the criminals to obtain some residual information, which they can then use, for example, to generate credit loans.
Są w stanie posłużyć się i na przykład na nasze dane wygenerować kredyty.
Payment card data enables them to make payments to somewhere on the other side of the world. And personal data will not be used so much for cybercrime, but for simple, traditional real-world fraud,
tradycyjnych oszustw w świecie realnym,
such as taking out some kind of loan or buying a subscription. The world, well, because they are clear, these vulnerabilities are known. They know what weaknesses this particular phone has, if you have this system and you don't do anything with it. Of course, part of the update improves, say, the optimization of the phone, but part is security related. Well, I want to use an app. Download it from the shop, yes? It doesn't matter which company it's from. And at this point, I have to wonder, am I even considering privacy? I mean, in order to be able to use it, I agree to something. That is, I accept that certain information will be transmitted. Of course, awareness comes into play here too. Each company, of course, says what it can be used for, or how I use a certain app. It has its standard setting. For example, the standard setting might be that our different social media feeds, they can be public, with certain photos displayed. So at that point, we feed the world all the time with different information about ourselves. And whatever appears on the internet, it never goes away. I think very hard about identity theft, a crime that usually ends in financial loss, big official problems, stress, sleepless nights, lawyers' fees to sort it all out, and, God forbid, some court cases to prove that we weren't the ones that took on these debts. And that, to me, is identity theft. It is very common that we publish everything about ourselves on social media, on the internet, how we do our shopping. We fill out surveys. And there we profile ourselves, female, male, age, etc. Very often we leave this data about ourselves online. A great deal of our data is actually available in open registers, where this information can be extracted. There are, for example, lists, such as, I don't know, the land registry, the business registry, if we run a company. In fact, one can find a range of information about each of us online. Also, when, well, I don't have to write that I'm, 40 years old, but if I have my year of birth marked in my social media profiles, well, it's not difficult to calculate whether I'm 40 or 80 years old, right? So often, we ourselves set up an account, even a few years ago, many years ago, say, on Facebook or another profile. We put in accurate data that actually indicates our date of birth. And unfortunately, we have actually exposed ourselves, who we are. We have in fact put our private data into the hands of various service providers. This identity theft doesn't just stop at stealing it, but it is then put to a great many uses. Personal data, payment card data and login data is very valuable to criminals because they can use it to commit many different crimes.
Wykorzystać te dane do wielu różnych przestępstw.
The login data allows them to take control of our accounts and use them for various crimes. When it comes to financial fraud, one has to forge or obtain and show genuine proof of identity of a specific person.
Tożsamości konkretnej osoby.
Here we're usually talking about a passport or identity card. If someone doesn't ever scan, take photos, store stuff on their computer systems, or send such material over the internet, they may think that they have nothing to fear, but this is not true. This is because if they hand over to anyone the information that's normally on the card, such as their name, surname and ID number, criminals can use this data to create a so-called collector's card.
Dowód kolekcjonerski.
That is, they simply pay 300 to 400 zlotys for a plastic card which looks identical to a real ID card to the untrained eye. This card, of course, has a photo of the fraudster, but the data? It's the personal details of a completely different person. With this fake document, the fraudster goes to various loan officers or uses some of these types of services on the internet, and this is how they get their loans. Identity theft, if I have the option of stage direction, that's a wider topic in general, yes? These avatars in general are just such a tiny part of what this artificial intelligence can be used for. But it's certainly worth saying, thinking about it, that the moment someone leaves any part of themselves on social media, they have to reckon with the fact that any of these photos could potentially be used by someone to create a digital twin. And of course, using a photo isn't going to be the same thing as using video, but lots of people post videos as well. So we leave so much information out there that theoretically, someone who would like to steal our image in some way can do it very easily, because we just leave this data for them on social media. This is what we have to deal with very often on the internet today. People download someone's photo and create so-called deepfake images. And it's worth knowing that it's considered unethical if the recipient is not told that they are talking to an avatar and not a real person. In some situations, it can be bending the law, and in other situations already breaking the law, or even causing harm to someone, which risks criminal liability. Stop going to pharmacies and hand over all your money to fools. And immediately bring to justice all those involved in hiding the real medicine that works from the people. To them, you are just another person who will bring them money. Deep fakes are most often created to trick people into handing over their information or money. They can also be used to spread disinformation. Where more advanced artificial intelligence models and agent systems are harnessed, we could be dealing with mass attacks. This is a big challenge. Because if information generated by artificial intelligence is released from various sources in a single moment, we might be manipulated en masse. So in this type of case, it might be an announcement by many important people, for example, senior politicians, about the outbreak of some conflict. This is then supported by information from many celebrities. And then by the time people have checked this information, several hours might have passed, and therefore they have already started to make some decisions. For example, taking money out of the bank. That could already have lots of repercussions for the economy. These days, people are very often fooled by deep fakes. They don't see the differences. Paradoxically, the younger generation senses it very quickly. They are able to spot the subtle differences in the pixels. The time lag in movement is very easy to identify by the way we blink. We blink faster in reality. Deepfakes usually blink a bit slower for some reason, but that's over now already. These are already perfect characters, making them move, adding any voice, putting them in any situation. It's just mouse clicks. It's minutes, seconds. It takes only a moment. It's a matter of processors, memory processors. It only takes a moment. It's done in real time, yes? So let's say if I'm talking to you now, I might just as well be in different clothes. I could equally be a woman, and we can do it against the backdrop of the Pyramid of Cheops near Cairo. I deal with identity theft every day. Every day someone creates a Facebook account that impersonates my name, trying to use my name to deceive other people. And this is my cyber world. This is what I face every day. If someone logs onto our social media account and uses our profile to scam our friends, this is also technically identity theft. But from the victim's point of view, while it may be difficult to look those who we have allegedly deceived in the eye, we don't usually lose much. It is also worth mentioning that the platforms, where the fake information is later made available, don't operate very efficiently. It usually takes several weeks to inform the platform operator that this material is somehow stolen or being used illegally. The platforms don't cooperate, which is why one major social media platform has a court ruling at the moment that it is not working efficiently enough here. If you try to report a fake account to the platform operator, it often takes them a month to process it. Meanwhile, the person behind the fake account is working. They are sending out invitations, and what most people see is their activity. They send invitations, active links. They talk about them, build their community. The account name can be changed in an instant. Suddenly it's no longer, for example, Maciej Kawecki's account, but a completely different one, but it is already taking advantage of the followers it gathered before. We get enormous numbers of reports from people who have, unfortunately, had their identity stolen in one way or another. Not necessarily due to them knowingly taking part in some kind of fraudulent campaign by clicking on links. Very often these were people who had unfortunately signed an employment contract with an employer who was not entirely reliable or adequately protected. After all, a contract like this very often has all the details that appear on our identity cards. There are also, and this shouldn't happen, but there are scans of employees' identity cards. Employers often need them to issue additional documents, such as visas for foreign travel. By attacking company servers, fraudsters can get hold of this material and then, using someone else's identity, take out loans. And the victim may only find out about it several months later, when it's too late, only when the bailiff's enforcement order appears on their bank account. We recently had a situation in our company where someone, claiming to be me, the CEO, asked an employee to go out as soon as possible and buy gift cards, scratch off the codes and send me the codes, which I supposedly needed for some meeting. Thanks to our vigilance, we were able to confirm immediately that it hadn't come from my email address. Most people would probably have fallen for this manipulation and sent the codes. There was no need for artificial intelligence here at all. So if, in addition, we'd had a deep fake image of the person making the request, sent, for example, through some app, some messenger, I think this could convince a lot of people that this is a real instruction from the boss. The basic attack is that I get an email, a message, for example. You've registered your child with the Social Security Office, right? But we're still short of one piece of information, so you can't get the 800 plus benefit, so you have to click this link. You go to the website. This site is identical to the real Social Security site, or any site. Identical. What's more, when they say, I have to check whether there's a padlock symbol, there is a padlock, and we are not able to recognize that at first glance it's a fake. Padlocks still work, but you have to admit that now, on the internet, there are also entire sites like this. Phishing as a service, no? Because it's so easy to do. So we can buy ourselves these sorts of sending packages where there will be ready-made websites. They're being shut down all the time. You might ask yourself, why would anyone need to know that I had had my appendix removed? I disclosed medical details. It's out in the world. Great. Even that I have allergies. I'm allergic to dust. There you go, medical data. There are things, there is medical data that we are able to share. There is no problem with that. Our image is also medical data, because we can see very easily if someone has a predisposition to certain diseases, what their complexion is like, or how they behave, if they are nervous in front of the camera, if they are... Does he behave like a robot? This says a lot about the psyche of the person, or about their psychological blockages as well. On the other hand, there are certain illnesses that we are at first ashamed of, because this is probably the most important thing from the point of view of us as people. And the second one, which can harm us, because the fact that I had an appendectomy, to be honest, I don't know, for an employer or at university? Well, I said, okay, I had one too, then go give a lecture. But the moment I would, for example, admit, let's say, that I have schizophrenia, and I have this kind of real schizophrenia, and that I have some kind of magical motivations or obsessive compulsive behavior and I tried to kill someone, for example. To be honest, then my presence on a university campus or in a kindergarten would not be the best idea. Medical data, and one should know this is data protected by law. Disclosure of data like this means prosecution. Hospitals and in general the various private and public healthcare facilities don't have adequate budgets for security, so these computer systems very often have some faults. Or, due to employee error, they're inadequately trained. This data appears where it shouldn't. When it's acquired, this data, it's not usually about patient data. It's about doctors' data and the opportunities doctors have, that they have when they log on to their systems, namely prescribing. How many stories have there been of the man finding out that their appointment record shows a visit to a gynecologist? You can check in your digital medical record account. And the point here was that these visits were simply assigned to random people so that a particular healthcare facility or doctor can get additional funds from the National Health Fund. How many situations have there been where someone found out they had a prescription for opioids or other types of more regulated drugs, only because someone simply used the doctor's data and someone else's personal data? And a prescription was issued, used, and collected from the pharmacy by someone completely different. Of course, yes, there are many threats like these, and it's difficult to pick out 2 or 3 points that will protect us from all of them. But what I would definitely strongly recommend is to set up a second login component for every profile that we have. With cybersecurity, it's a bit like going to the gym. It's not as though if you come and watch, you'll gain muscle. You have to go and exercise. You have to exercise regularly. It's not like you read something there, develop some awareness, and suddenly you can stop. It's not like that. You have to be open all the time to knowledge in this area. What's going on? What to pay attention to? What sort of dangers are coming up in the digital world you're moving around in? And then you might develop a certain intuition that will stop you from doing certain things. It is very important that as many people as possible are aware, firstly, that such technology exists, and know that what they see on the internet, what they hear on the internet, is not necessarily the statement of that particular person. If a bank calls us and asks us to give information to verify ourselves, so, Mr. Maciej, I have bank information for you, but before I give out this information, I would like to ask you for your date of birth. This is what banks do today. We have the right in this situation to say, I am going to check, and we have to do it. That is, before we give out the information, we say, please confirm your identity. How the bank does this is up to them. The most effective way is to use the bank's own mobile app. We know that we have the bank's mobile app on our phone. Therefore, the bank person should say, please go in, please open your phone up, please log into the application. We log in with our data, and a pop-up should appear telling you who you are talking to at that moment. I then know about it, and some of the banks do it. And then I know about it actually. Well, yes, I know that I'm talking to Mrs. Anna Kowalska from XYZ Bank, and I can pass on that information. I really encourage everyone to block their PESEL ID number as soon as possible. Why is this important? Because if our PESEL is blocked and our identity is stolen, if anyone wants to make a financial commitment or carry out a number of other official activities, for example at a notary's, this can't happen if our PESEL is blocked. And we may even receive notifications from a government application that someone has just tried to carry out an operation but has failed, because our PESEL is blocked. It's really important that at the moment we know that we've been defrauded, we contact our bank quickly. This way, it may still be possible to block any outgoing transfers. Maybe the transaction hasn't yet happened, and perhaps our money can still be recovered. Another important thing is to report the matter to the police, because if we have been the victim of a crime, whether online or offline, we should report it to the police. Because the more reports there are about the various types of fraud, websites or places where we have been cheated, the greater the chances that there will be many victims, and the greater the chances that the police will manage to catch the perpetrators.